Hi everyone, Mr. Ince here, and this is going to be your consumer math video for Tuesday, October 25th. Now, a couple heads up announcements. Make sure that you have already collected Monday's homework with the substitute, page 215 through 216, numbers 1 through 13. Another thing to make sure that you remember is that everybody needs to have their initial investments for our stock project submitted as soon as possible on Google Classroom. If you end up having some extra time today, why don't you try to finish that up and get that submitted. Also, really important, make sure that you note and recall that our Chapter 5 test is going to be on this Thursday, which means that when I get back to see you on Wednesday, we'll be reviewing, and then it's go time. Now, make sure that you have your warm-ups and your notes ready. We're going to go ahead and go through one of those as well. So here's our warm-up for 1025. And as usual, make sure that you write down our highlighted label within your warm-ups and notes, which will turn in on the day of the test. Now here's your question. You always want to treat this like a confidence check to see if you're prepared for Thursday. We're going to make sure that we're using the table on page 797. And remember, at any time you can pause this video or rewind to make sure that you're really understanding things to the best of your knowledge. So why don't you make sure that you have that table from page 797, and here we go. The question reads, which person would gain more interest in their account over the specified period of time? Show work for both to prove it. So person number one has $5,000 in an account that's earning 2.5% interest compounded, so this is not simple interest, this is compound interest, semi-annually over 2 years. Or is it going to be person two with $5,000 earning 4% interest compounded quarterly over 1.5 years? Well, since this is a table question, I know that semi-annually needs to be seen as 2 times per year, and quarterly is a 4 times per year conversation when it comes to using the tables. In order to manipulate the table, we need to make sure we know what numbers we're looking for along the top and along the side. Along the top of the table, that's our rate per period, which means that I do our rate, 2.5%, divided by the number of times that the interest cycle is happening per year. And since it's semi-annual, it's going to be 2. And this divides to 1.25%. So that's our number along the top. The number along the left side is where you do the number of times per year, once again 2 for semi-annually, times the number of years that you want to analyze the investment, in this case 2 years, which means that we're going to be looking for 4 interest cycles. So if we track in from 4 over to 1.25, we're going to get our money multiplier from the table, which if we take a peek, 1.25 is here. We're going to drop down to 4. So there it is, 1.05095. That number once again was 1.05095. And you guys know that we take that number and we multiply it times the amount of money that we've put into the account. And after crunching those, give me 1 second here. We end up getting $5,254.75. Now keep in mind the question was asking which person would gain more interest in the account. So I suppose at the end we can just compare their totals to see how much they gained. Now on to person two. Remember, you can always pause to try this one on your own before listening to me go through it on the video. I'm going to set up my table arrangement. I know that along the top I'm doing the interest, or the rate, divided by the number of times it compounds in a year. In this case it's quarterly, so it's 4 times per year. 4 divided by 4 means that I'm looking for the 1% column. And then off to the side, remember it's the number of times per year, so 4, times the number of years that you want to analyze. Now this one's a decimal, but that's okay. It's just 1.5 years, also known as a year and a half. And that means that there's going to be 6 cycles. So now that's when we reach for our table one more time. We are looking in the 1% column, and we're going to drop down to 6 interest cycles, and that number is 1.06152. 1.06152 times our principal times the $5,000 that we put into the account, and that value results in $5,307.60, which means when it comes to who earned more, person number 2. Man, that lucky person number 2 getting all that free money. Okay, moving on from the warm-up. We're now going to take a look at our notes for the day, which is going to be our last section of Chapter 5. So once again, make sure that you have this label copied down exactly like this, Notes 1025. The section is 5.8, and the topic is a new word for us, which is annuities. Annuities is not exactly a savings account. It's something that you could take out, for instance, with an insurance company where you make regular payments thinking about your retirement down the road. So here we go. A couple definitions to handle first. So once again, continuing on, an annuity is where equal amounts of money are being deposited into an account at equal periods of time. An ordinary annuity is where the deposits are made at the end of each interest cycle or interest period. Now, once again, you would make these types of annuity payments perhaps to an insurance company who would then pay them out during retirement after having earned a certain amount of interest. Now, you're going to need to use the table that's on page 798. I know you told yourself, man, I want to use another table. Well, today's your lucky day. So if you could please make sure that you have the table from page 798, that would be terrific. And continuing our notes, here's how you're going to manipulate that table. It's a similar conversation to what we've done in the past with the table that we used on the warm-up. When it comes to your x-axis value, the horizontal section of the graph along the top going from left to right, that's the rate per period. That's where you take your annual rate, remember that's your percentage, divided by the number of periods per year. Remember, if that's semi-annually, that's 2. If it's quarterly, it's 4. If it's monthly, it's 12. Now for the total periods or the total cycles, referred to as N, along the y-axis, this is along the up and down, on the left side of the table, it's the periods per year times the number of years that you want to examine. So for instance, if it was semi-annually for 6 years, semi-annually would be 2 times per year times the 6 years that I want to analyze, which comes out to 12 cycles or interest periods for that problem. Moving right along. We're just going to go ahead and do one example very carefully, and then after that you'll have the remainder of the period to go ahead and get going on today's assignment. Here's our example. Please make sure that you write all details for this one. We're going to examine if you have $400 compounded monthly at 6% for 3 years. Now remember, these are payments within an annuity that are made on a consistent basis. So you're going to find that the numbers in the table are far greater and that this value is increasing much faster than what a standard savings account would do. Here we go. The rate per period. Now remember, this is where we do the percentage divided by the number of cycles in a given year. When I see the word monthly, I'm telling myself that's 12 per year. So along the top of the table, we will be looking for the 6% divided by 12. We chose 12 because of the monthly, and this divides out to 0.5%. And again, that's the column that we'll be looking for along the top of the table. Number of periods. This is going to be 12 per year, and we want to analyze it over a 3-year period of time. So once again, 12 due to the monthly times 3, because we want to analyze this for 3 years, equals 36. So I've got my 2 table values that I need to examine. Again, the way that that's going to shake out is along the top of the table, I'm looking for 0.5%. Along the side of the table, I'm looking down towards 36. And you're going to track in, and you're going to track over, and that's going to be the money multiplier that you use for this problem. Now, if we take a look at the table on page 798, here is that 0.5% on the top of the table, and then we're going to scroll down to 36, and there's the number that we're looking for. This tells us that for every dollar invested, it's going to turn out to a little bit over $39.33. So that's 39.33610. So that's our table value once again of 39.33610. And you guys know that this value that we're getting from the table, that's what we multiply against the amount of money that we're putting into this account. So we're going to do 400 times 39.33610. Give me a second here. You guys can go ahead and crunch that as well. That shakes out to $15,734.44. Now remember, this is not purely interest. This is based on making $400 payments monthly, but while that's occurring, you are receiving that interest rate as well. $15,000. Woo! Yeah, baby. Now, dropping down here, you can see that we have an assignment. So page 218, 219, numbers 1 through 11. Please note that we will not be doing numbers 3 and 4. Now, if you finish that up early, which I hope you do, please feel free to work on submitting those stock investments, which can be found on Google Classroom. That's also where it's turned in. And other than that, I just hope you guys have a great Tuesday. Thanks for listening. I'll be checking for those notes and warm-ups when I get back. Okay.